Hey guys, tonight we wander into a desert twilight where the horizon glows faintly from braziers dotting the dunes. Each ember a tiny lighthouse against the chilling breeze. You probably won't survive this if you can't handle brisk winds and flickering firelight. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time in the comments too, so I know where you're winding down. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge across cool sand, the weight of your pack clinking against your hip, until the first glow appears like a mirage made real. Portable braziers perch on low iron stands, their coals glowing like captured embers of the setting sun. By the 19th century, silk route caravans commonly carried these compact hearths to banish desert cold and forge nightly camaraderie mainstream fact. Each brazier's heat curls around ankles and drapes warmth over shoulders, a tactile promise that night, even in the open desert, can feel like home. A fringe rumor suggests some traders tossed crushed date pits mixed with resin into the coals, believing the fragrant smoke could ward off sand spirit's quirky tidbit. You wrinkle your nose at that notion. Nothing like a smoky spirit to keep you awake. You joke, but admit the idea of mystical pest control has a certain rustic charm. Steam from heated water kettles hisses as it meets the brazier's lip, amplifying the illusion of a murmuring desert spa. Historians still argue whether braziers drew their design from military campfires or nomadic hearth customs open scholarly debate. Yet every traveler seems convinced it's the only cure for frozen toes. You step closer, feeling the gentle roar of fire. A caravan cook in russet tunic flips flatbreads on a griddle perched atop glowing coals, an impromptu pizza party in the sands. I haven't had a campfire pizza since my microwave died, you think, and your stomach gurgles in eager agreement. Nearby, a merchant leans over the brazier, warming leather boots that squeak with every movement. The sizzle of oil on heated metal and the crackle of charcoal form a symphony of comfort. Around you, travelers cluster scholars in indigo robes reading travelogues by emberlight, camel drivers in saffron turbans comparing foot warmers, and silk merchants in teal vests testing fabric resilience against the night breeze. A light joke drifts through your mind. If only my office had a Brazier's policy thermal dress code would finally make sense. Despite the modern aside, the scene feels timeless humanity, gathered around fire-sharing stories that flicker as wildly as the flames. You kneel and run your fingers over the brazier's edge, noting the ironwork's simple scrolls and artisan's touch in utilitarian design. Some shops along the route claim these scrolls were coded maps guiding lost merchants back to safety quirky tidbit. You tap a swirl as though dialing an ancient GPS, half expecting a secret path to glow in the sand. Whether that tale holds water or is just playful gossip, you decide it's worth another kerosene lantern's worth of curiosity. Your companion nudges you, offering a sip of spiced coffee warmed by embers in a copper sesve. The bitter liquid slides down your throat, a pep talk, in hot form. I'm fine, you murmur, just a bit toasty. The warmth spreads from your belly outwards, not unlike how the brazier's circle of heat encircles the camp. A third light joke surfaces. If only my laptop could warm my sickly cold fingers like this. Steam rises from a kettle, and you lean in to inhale herbal Bedtime sage and a trace of caraway seeds traditions borrowed from Caravan's medicinal lore mainstream fact. A few traders once sprinkled goat's whey into the steam, convinced its proteins soothed skin troubles. Quirky tidbit. You imagine a goat wearing armor at the cooking pot and chuckle softly, but admit the aromatic steam feels calming, like a portable hammam in the dunes. Historians still argue whether these steam rituals spread from Persian bathhouses or emerged independently among desert caravans. Open scholarly debate. Either way, you appreciate the ingenuity of combining warmth with gentle inhalations under an open sky. As the moon climbs, the brazier's halo of light expands, revealing desert silhouettes, distant dunes rolling like tidal waves frozen in time. You press a hand to the coal's iron stand, feeling residual heat that glows long after the flame has dimmed. Embers pop, sending sparks that drift upward like fireflies abandoning their posts. A gust of wind sweeps across the sands, and the flames dance in response, a whispered conversation between earth and sky. You settle onto a low sandbag bench carved from tightly woven reeds, the brazier's glow painting your face in warm tones. A fellow traveler, wrapped in teal-colored shawl, begins humming an old caravan tune, its melody weaving through the crackling fire. You close your eyes, letting the sound and warmth cradle you, imagining the caravans of centuries past, sharing the same lullaby. My dentist would be proud of how calmly I'm sitting by glowing coals, you joke, inwardly suppressing a grin in homage to the night's hush. Across the fire, puppeteers crafted marionettes from camel leather and linen playing shadow tales on a tent wall lit by the brazier's flicker. Figures of silk traders, fierce Mongol horsemen, and sly desert foxes danced in elongated silhouettes. You lean forward, fascinated by how a single light source can conjure entire worlds from simple shapes. This communal theater has no stage but fire and no script but collective memory. Time here feels elastic, moments stretch and contract in tandem with the flame's rhythm. You peek at your watch. Digital time seems absurd amid this analog glow. You push it aside. After all, caravans didn't follow clocks, but the sun and stars. A final light joke surfaces. If I checked my email by brazier light, my inbox would spontaneously combust. You laugh quietly, not wanting to break the desert spell. When the coals sink to a soft glowing ember bed, the camp hushes in reverence. You stand stretching joints warmed by fire and fellowship, and take one last look at the brazier's embers, cherry red and stubborn against the night's chill. You tuck memories of warmth into your bones, ready for the next chapter in this slow burning tale of trade, fire, and human connection. You rise from the braid of embers and follow your telek to a nearby stack of fuel where the night's supper of fire awaits its next course. Here, Traders have piled camel dung patties, driftwood logs, and precious nuggets of imported coal into neat rows. Each fuel type a key to unlocking warmth across the silk routes. By the 19th century, caravans regularly carried camel dung as a primary heat source, prized for its slow, steady burn and easy availability along desert oases. Mainstream fact. You reach out to scoop up a patty, feeling its firm, sun-baked surface crumble slightly between your fingertips as a faint, earthy aroma drifts upward. A fringed tradition suggests some camp cooks mixed dung with spice residues, cumin husks, and pepper flakes to give the flames a perfumed kick. Quirky tidbit. You wrinkle your nose at the thought of cumin-scented smoke singing through the night. Nothing like a chili-flavored campfire, you joke, but admit the idea of merging culinary and warmth rituals feels delightfully resourceful. Steam from last night's kettle still coils around the crib-sized hearth, intertwining with the new fires that will soon roar to life. Historians still argue whether dung fires were viewed purely as survival tools or also as markers of social ingenuity in arid lands. Open scholarly debate. Your telec lifts a split log of driftwood, next its silvery gray grain streaked with salt from riverbanks hundreds of miles west. Driftwood crackles with a brighter flame than dung, casting dancing shadows along the caravan's canvas walls. You cradle the log against your ribs for a moment, appreciating the tinge of fresh water scent that washes through its fibers. A light joke sparks, I haven't held anything this fresh since my roommate's spring cleaning. The log's promises of a higher fireball and quicker warmth make it a prized, albeit bulky, companion on river-crossing legs of the journey. Beyond the driftwood, nestled under a leather tarpaulin, rests a smaller, more exotic pile coal. Shiny lumps of black anthracite shimmer in the lantern glow, each piece worth its weight in gold to desert traders. Coal traveled south via Red Sea ports and east by camelback convoys, making it a rare commodity in the sands. You pick up a glossy chunk, surprised by its solid coal heft, as if you're cradling a chipped piece of the night sky. A second light joke trails in your mind. I feel like a prospector at the world's smallest gold rush. As you place each fuel source around the brazier, you note the subtle science at play: dung for endurance, driftwood for flare coal, for intense, long-burning heat. A telek in saffron shalvar arrives with an iron fire tong and hefts the charcoal into the center, arranging it like a prow of a ship, cutting through midnight waves. The metal tongs hiss as they scrape against embers, sounding like miniature thunder. You cough lightly at the coal's slick smoke, rich, almost sweet, with traces of sulfur, and imagine modern office buildings running on this stuff. Coal-powered cubicles, you quip inwardly, would make staff complaints about the AC obsolete. Caravan cooks move in next, layering dung cakes around the coal's perimeter to nurture the heat without suffocating the flame. A fringe claim once held that heat from dung fires improved the flavor of spiced stews far more than coal alone, infusing a desert wood smokiness into every spoonful. Quirky tidbit. You watch a cook ladle stew into earthen bowls over the mingled flame, the aroma of lamb and coriander drifting up like a beckoning invitation. You sneak a taste just enough to test the theory and murmur, I might start a restaurant on wheels. The fire roars into existence, a triune blaze, fed by dung smolder, driftwoods crackle, and coals roar. Each fuel crackles in its own register, low thumps from dung, sharp snaps from wood, and a steady hiss from coal's embers. You sink onto a nearby woven reed seat, legs sliding forward as the furnace warms your shins. The tactile contrast reminds you of goat hair mitts buffing your skin back in Section 6 roughness. Turn to comfort with the right technique. You close your eyes, absorbing the heat's gentle push, and let a third light joke flit by. I feel like a human radiator, eco-friendly and utterly uninterruptible. Across the fire, camel drivers in russet turbans gather dung patties for tomorrow's flame-expert hands, folding and packing them into leather saddlebags. Each patty is pressed with care, stamped with clan symbols to mark ownership, a sort of desert currency where heat equaled trading power. You lean in to examine a stamped patty, two crossed camels encircled by stylized dunes. A young driver notices your curiosity and grins. This one's a VIP cake guaranteed to outlast a sandstorm. You laugh, picturing a cake tough enough to survive the Sahara. Meanwhile, woodcutters from distant river valleys sit cross-legged, carving driftwood chunks into manageable segments. Their chisels glint in the firelight, each sculpted piece poised to feed the blaze. You marvel at the woodworking skill. Every split log fits precisely into the next like puzzle pieces, forming a bonfire. Historians still debate whether driftwood logs were trimmed primarily for flame efficiency or as demonstrations of artisanship to impress caravan masters. Open scholarly debate. You lean back, letting the debate flicker out in rhythm with the flames. Then comes the ceremonial lighting of the coal. A senior merchant dressed in indigo robes trimmed with gold thread taps a glowing ember from the brazier and transfers it to a coal pile inside a small iron grate. Sparks fly as the coal ignites, sending a radiant plume of heat upward toward the night sky. The merchant raises his hands, whispering a prayer for safe passage and ample profit, a ritual repeated across centuries whenever new fuel was introduced. You catch a phrase in Ottoman Turkish and murmur a silent Afiyet Olsen, like a secret incantation. The fire now blazes at full strength, a towering column of light and warmth bathing the caravan circle. You press your hands together in front of the coals, feeling the dancing heat pattern shimmer across your skin. A light aside surfaces. My electric heater at home has nothing on this performance. Despite the modern quip, the moment feels primal, ancient technology glowing for human survival. As the night deepens, you notice embers glowing deeper within the coal, a ruby core that promises hours of warmth without fresh refueling. The dung and driftwood embers fade to glowing embers, providing a more subtle radiance. You sit back feeling a gentle drowsiness settle into your limbs, lulled by fire's shifting colors and the soft murmur of fellow travelers. The triangular fuel dance dung wood coal has created a comfort spectrum, endurance flare intensity, all in one campfire. When your telex nods, you stand and retrieve a small iron ladle of water steaming over the coals, then pour it into a waiting copper pot for tomorrow's morning tea. The hiss of water meeting hot metal echoes like applause for a well-orchestrated performance. You bow slightly to the brazier. Thank you, good night. You joke silently, you've earned your keep. The fire's glow dims to embers, and you let its final warmth sink into your bones before stepping away toward your tent. You trudge forward through the cooling embers of the communal fire following your telex as he guides you toward a cluster of low stone cairns faintly illuminated by the moon. Each cairn holds its own small brazier, a discreet flame meant not for warmth, but for guidance. Tiny beacons strung like pearls across the desert night. By the 19th century, traders used these portable fire markers to navigate featureless sands and rocky passes, turning an otherwise infinite landscape into a map of glowing signposts, mainstream fact. As you step between their soft halos, you realize you're relying on ancient GPS glow positioning system. Your boots crunch on a mix of sand and gravel, and each flame winks at you, some sputtering from camel dung cakes, others burning brighter with driftwood kindling. You lean closer to one marker and notice a small loop of leather tied around its stem, used to carry or hang the brazier on camel saddles during daylight hours. A fringe claim suggests certain caravan masters infuse those leather straps with crushed saffron, believing its scent would ward off thief-sniffing jackals at midnight. Quirky tidbit. You sniff the strap experimentally, no saffron thankfully, and quip inwardly, jackals, 0, saffron 0. The moonlight glints off your companion's metal gaiters, reminding you that these makers of ancient signage took their navigational responsibilities very seriously. Ahead, the telex stops by a cluster of 3 cairns arranged in a rough triangle. He crouches and adjusts the fuel, flicking away the spent embers before reigniting a fresh flake of dung beneath a driftwood splinter. The flame shears upward, instantly visible for dozens of paces. You're struck by how a single flame can feel like a living creature breathing, flickering, beckoning. A light joke drifts through your mind. My fitness tracker would count this as a firelit aerobic workout. You chuckle, careful not to disturb the stillness. As you stand, you notice other traders murmuring to their camels, guiding them toward the next fire. One caravan cook balances a brass pot on his hip while stepping between markers, proof that even under the stars, dinner waits for no one. You imagine that a missed signpost could mean hours of drift, or a camel meltdown, the difference between arriving at tomorrow's oasis and wandering until dawn. Historians still argue whether these nighttime markers evolved from nomadic tent lanterns or were innovations by Persian map makers seeking to standardize caravan routes. Open scholarly debate. You flex your calves, feeling the thrill of following time-tested flames rather than trusting an unreliable compass. You bend to examine the brazier more closely. Its iron stand is simple, 3 legs splayed like a stable tripod, but the bowl above is etched with tiny crescents and calligraphy, each inscription a prayer for safe travel. Beneath the script, a fringed tradition holds that reciting the carved verse under a full moon could illuminate not only the path, but one's destiny. Quirky tidbit, you murmur the words aloud phonetically, but the flame doesn't flare any brighter, leaving you to wonder if you bungled the incantation or if the prayer's power has dimmed over time. The Telic beckons, and you follow him along a winding dune crest, where the next marker stands alone, its glow encircled by a ring of white pebbles. The stones reflect the flame and moonlight, amplifying the beacon's reach. You crouch to trace the pebble circle, each stone smooth from countless caravans passing this way. A light joke pops in your mind, pebble-powered spotlight nature's recycling program. You pocket a stray pebble as a souvenir, amused by how even utilitarian markers can feel deeply personal. After a stretch of pale desert floor, the Telic halts at the most prized navigation aid, a brazier mounted atop a short cedar post, its golden glow cast against the black sky like a traffic light for camels. You gaze up at it as though spotting a lighthouse on a sandy sea. It dominates the scene not by size, but by its height and sturdy construction. Wooden fire tongs rest against the post, ready for adjustments. You approach and run a finger along the cedar grain, appreciating its sacred status. A local legend says the wood was brought from the cedars of Lebanon and consecrated by a traveling monk before construction. Quirky tidbit. You wonder if monks get frequent traveler miles. Standing at the base, you look back and see a line of markers twinkling like sunset campfires stretching into the distance. The effect is hypnotic, an invitation and a warning all at once. Follow us, but don't stray. You lean forward, planting both palms on a warm post, and let the embers' heat pulse through you. It's an intimate reminder that these braziers aren't just tools, they're companions on a lonely road. A light joke surfaces, wouldn't mind a little post-massage after that heat. Suddenly, a fierce wind gusts over the dune's lip, sending sand swirling around the brazier's legs. The flame dips dangerously low, revealing how delicate this navigation system can be. You step in to shield the brazier with your body, just as you once held a pillow to protect your phone from a breeze back home, except here the stakes feel higher. A rain of shining grains coats your jacket. You quip inwardly, if only my phone had this kind of hero protection. The flame steadies, and you release a breath you didn't know you were holding. The Telic kneels and fans the flame with a short sheepskin fan, reigniting the coals with gentle puffing. You admire his steady technique, no theatrical flicks, just deliberate measured breaths. Historians still debate whether fans were introduced from Chinese tea ceremonies or evolved from nomadic reed fans used to cool textiles. Open scholarly debate. Whether borrowed or invented, this fan's ritual touches feel like an elegant dance in the desert's austerity. You rise and pace around the brazier, mapping out how its light intersects with the moonlit dunes. Your shadow stretches long and thin, a silent travel diary in motion. A fellow traveler approaches, adjusting the brazier's height with an iron crank, explaining in hushed tones that raising the flame can ward off sand, an unspoken form of border control against drifting grains. You nod, half impressed by the science of sand mitigation and half amused by the idea of desert border patrol. A third light joke drifts in Sand Customs Agent, declare your dunes, please. As you step back to let the telic guide you onward, you hear a soft cough behind you. A scholar trudges up holding a leather-bound navigation treatise. He squints at the Brazier inscriptions, comparing them to his map's symbols. You catch a phrase, latitude equal to the Brazier's count, and wonder if desert latitude was once measured by flame arrays. You murmur, if only GPS had a campfire mode. He glances at you curious before returning to his studies under ember light. The caravan's lead camel driver signals to move, tapping on his brazier in 3 quick knocks, an unspoken cue that the route is secure. You follow, stepping between the fire markers and into the next dune corridor, their glow dwindling in the distance. Each brazier's pulse lingers in your vision, guiding you even after you've passed. The desert feels less vast, more like a tapestry woven with points of light. When at last you pause on a high ridge, you look back at the chain of flames meandering across the sands. They draw a glowing lifeline, a phrase of fire in the sand's alphabet. You place a hand over your heart, warmed by both flame and shared ritual. A final light joke surfaces. I'd subscribe to a desert fire newsletter, Weekly Ember Digest. You laugh softly, mindful of the wind and the hush of dunes settling under starlight. And so, with each step guided by glowing braziers, you move deeper into the night's embrace, hand-fed lanterns lighting your way, ancient science dancing in warm halos, and human ingenuity etched in flickering flames. Each marker is a promise: follow the light, trust the fire, and you will arrive. You pivot from the glow of navigation braziers toward a ring of larger hearths, where flames dance beneath cast iron pots, communal kitchens alight in the desert's hush. Caravans often transform these hearth flames into mobile kitchens, simmering hearty stews and fragrant broths. To feed weary travelers by the 19th century, an essential ritual that sustained body and spirit alike. Mainstream fact. As you step closer, the scent of simmering lamb lentils and turmeric swirls through the night air, wrapping around you like a warm shawl. Steam curls from the pot lids in lazy spirals, each tendril bearing the promise of spice-laden sustenance. A fringe recipe whispers through the scented haze. Some cooks once tossed crushed rose petals and burnt camel bone ash into the stew, convinced the alchemy would heighten the broth's restorative powers. Quirky tidbit, you wrinkle your nose at the thought. Nothing like a hint of fossil fuel in my dinner. You joke inwardly, but admit the image of camel bone consommé carries a certain desert mystique. Nearby, a telic ladles spoonfuls of stew into wooden bowls, handing you one that brims with golden broth and tender morsels. The bowl warms your palms, and you lean in to inhale the heady aroma: cumin's earthiness, coriander's citrus note, and a whisper of smokiness from the coals. You sink onto a woven reed mat, crossing your legs as fellow travelers form a loose circle around the hearth. A silk merchant in indigo robes lifts her bowl and murmurs that adding a pinch of powdered saffron improved digestion on long journeys of debate still carried across caravan camps, open scholarly debate. You dip your spoon and taste the saffron sunlit warmth, imagining a field of golden crocuses blooming at dawn. A light joke surfaces. My kitchen cupboard could use a dash of desert sun this winter. Across the fire, a merchant in russet tunic holds up a handful of Durham wheat, flatbread crisped against a heated stone slab perched atop smoldering coals. He tears off a piece and hands it to you crisp at the edges, soft within its wheaty flavor, a perfect vessel for stew. You take a bite, the bread's texture reminding you of Section 2's driftwood smell and Section 1's campfire pizza. I haven't had carbs this good since my toaster broke, you think, savoring the contrast between the bread's char and its pillowy interior. A second light joke drifts in as you dunk more bread. If my office served flatbread this fresh, I'd never eat lunch at my desk. Despite the modern quip, the moment feels timeless. People gathered around fire sharing food and forging connections. An elderly camel driver taps his bowl inviting you to refill. You pour broth from a low brass kettle, letting the liquid pool around chunks of meat and pearl barley. The kettle's spout squeaks a rustic punctuation to the caravan's culinary symphony. Nearby, a cluster of women in teal veils stir a pot of rice pilaf saffron-stained grains glimmering like jewels in the firelight. They sprinkle slivered almonds and dried apricots atop the pile, summoning a sweet, savory balance that rivals any palace cuisine. Pilaf, fit for a sultan, you joke, if only I had my smartphone to post a foodie pic. The women laugh softly, their voices as gentle as the cooking steam. A young scholar in a linen cap retrieves a small jar of powdered garlic and black lime. He sprinkles a pinch into his bowl, smiling at the zing it adds. "Black lime is my secret for alertness," he whispers. "You scoop a bit onto your tongue and catapult yourself awake. I could write code with this kind of kick-you-muse." A third light joke surfaces. Who needs espresso when your stew has citrus bombs? The hearth's flames flicker against canvas walls, casting moving arabesque patterns that echo the marble carvings you admired in Section 2. You lean back, admiring how the warm light turns fellow travelers into traveling frescoes, faces highlighted in amber garments, glowing with embers. The cook ladles out roasted chickpeas, spiced with coriander seeds and a dusting of chili flakes, each bite crackling with pungent warmth. You munch one, the spice coaxing tears of joy and perhaps a hint of regret. My spice tolerance peaked at mild salsa, you joke. So this is an adventure. A fringe tale bubbles up that some caravan cooks once stirred their breads into the stew, creating a thick porridge believed to cure hangovers and heat stroke in one go quirky tidbit. You imagine slurping bread stew hybrid at a modern brunch, carb stew, the new toast, and chuckle. Whether that practice truly cured ailments or thrived on hearsay, you admit the idea of edible innovation in the sands feels delightfully experimental. As bowls empty, you notice that empty shells of pistachios and walnuts are tossed onto woven mats where children play simple hand games. Stones flicked into holes scored in wood. The children's laughter melds with steamy plops and wooden spoon taps, forming a lullaby that hums across the desert. You remember the rhythmic drip of the fountain in Section 1. Here, the percussion shifts to culinary clatter, but the effect is equally soothing. Historians still debate whether communal cooking fires were primarily survival installations or crafted performances to showcase hospitality and status among traders. Open scholarly debate. You watch a dignitary in a silk-lined robe oversee the stew pot, nodding approvingly at each spice addition. A light joke surfaces, "I'd bow to a stew pot if it cooked this well." Yet the atmosphere feels more egalitarian than hierarchical. Everyone shares the same flame, the same bowl, and the same warmth. Your companion offers you a taste of brewed mint tea, sweetened with rock sugar poured from a slender glass into tiny tulip-shaped cups that clink like teardrops against metal trays. You cradle the cup, feeling the heat seep into your fingers, and sip the mint's cool freshness as a counterpoint to the stew's richness. My dentist will hate this sugar, you think, but my soul is well cared for. The night deepens, and the hearth's chorus shifts from cooking to campfire quiet embers. Crackle pots settle, and voices soften. You push back the last bit of flatbread patted with olive oil and za'atar spice blend and lean into the warmth, pooling at your feet. You recall the goat hair mitt scrub from Section 6 and how it prepared your skin. Now this meal's warmth feels like a scrub for the soul, buffing away hunger and fatigue with every bite. A final light joke bubbles up. Who knew the key to human connection was a big pot of stew? You realize that across centuries and continents, traders have huddled around hearths to transform fuel into more than heat. They forged community and memory. As you rise, bellies full and spirits lifted, you offer a silent toast to the Brazier chefs and transportable kitchens that made this moment possible. You step back to your own Brazier circle bowl in hand and let the fire's afterglow follow you. The night stretches ahead, roads lit by braziers and bellies warmed by stew. You tuck the wooden bowl into a travel pack, grateful for handheld sustenance, and prepare to drift into the next chapter of this firelit odyssey. You lean back against a warm stone ledge as the hearth's light flickers across the dark horizon, convinced that fire's glow does more than banish darkness. It stands as a sentinel against prowling threats. In the 19th century, Silk Route caravans prized their campfires not only for warmth, but for protection, believing the crackle and light repelled wolves, jackals, and desert foxes that hunted beneath the moon. Mainstream fact. As you pat embers back into place, you notice a low rhythmic snap. Nothing to fear, yet you half expect a desert predator to skitter at the edge of your vision. A fringe rumor suggests some caravan leaders once smeared dung-infused oil on their tent flaps. After dark, convinced the scent would mask human odor and confuse scavengers' quirky tidbit. You wrinkle your nose. Nothing like eau de camel cake to keep you safe, you joke. But admit the idea of camouflage by aroma carries a certain rustic logic. The scent of dung oil drifts faintly through the camp, mingling oddly with the tang of stews and the sweet promise of mint tea. Historians still argue whether these olfactory defenses originated in Persian hunting camps or evolved among nomadic tribes adapting to wildlife threats open scholarly debate. You slide a leather pouch from your belt and produce a handful of dried thorn fig snacks that double as makeshift noisemakers when tossed into the fire. Each hissing explosion sends sparks flying like startled fireflies, startling any nearby critter into retreat. My smoke alarm at home could learn a thing or two, you muse, picturing a toaster-triggered warning system. A light joke flits through your mind as you lob another thorn fig grenades nature's popcorn. The snap and pop create a crackling orchestra that lulls you while keeping hungry mouths at bay. Across the fire, a burly camel driver hefts an iron fire tongue to reposition coals, his silhouette a gentle giant framed by amber glow. He tosses a handful of juniper berries onto the flame, and the citrusy resin bursts into a fragrant blue smoke. Juniper smoke wards off disease and beasts, he murmurs, echoing caravan lore that fire infused with certain woods could repel not only predators, but plagues mainstream fact. You inhale the cedar-like scent, imagining a smoky perimeter that acts like an invisible fence. I knew my home mosquito repellent could be classier, you joke, picturing a spa day in the back garden. Nearby, women in saffron wraps bolster the fire with broom-like bundles of thorn branches, their scratch adding another layer to the camp's defensive chorus. One woman shares how some caravans tethered small bells to tent corners. When predators approached, the bells jingled like temple chimes, alerting guards quirky tidbit. You giggle at the mental image of a wolf trying to sneak past a tinkle trap stealth mode deactivated. Yet the principle is surprisingly effective. Sound, smoke, and light combining to safeguard human sleep. You cup your hands around the brazier's rim, feeling the heat pulse through your fingers. The light reveals drifts of sand piling against the camp's low stone walls, and you recall the goat hair mitt's rough comfort from earlier sections. This rugged terrain demands equally adaptive defenses. A stray thought surfaces. My weather app doesn't warn about wolf sneak attacks. A second light joke cracks itself into your mind as you glance at your smartphone strapped to your belt, silent in the lantern's glow. Eyes adjust to the half-dark, and you spot glowing eyes reflecting in the distance, likely jackals sniffing out scraps. You raise a hand in mock salute, offering them a polite good evening, before stoking the fire with a fresh piece of driftwood. The flames surge upward, expanding the camp's circle of safety. You imagine a sign at home, no nocturnal scavengers allowed. A third light joke pops in, wolf-proof patio coming soon. Legends say some traders carried small leather flasks of dried scorpion venom dripped into brazier flames. The acrid smoke would create a guardian miasma warding off evil spirits and animal threats alike. Quirky tidbit. You admire the creativity but stick to juniper berries. The idea of venom mists swirling around your head makes you rather grateful for milder repellents. Historians still debate whether such venom-based fumigations were widespread or mere performance art for daring merchants' open scholarly debate. Either way, it's proof that caravan defenses blurred the line between practical and theatrical. The night deepens, and the fire's protective canopy grows more pronounced. You gaze at the fierce orange glow, feeling safe within its radius. In that moment, you realize fire is more than technology. It's a cultural artifact, a shared ritual binding strangers into a guarded community. A stray spark lands on your scarf, and you flick it away, grinning at your own dramatic fire confetti courtesy of the dunes. Your Telek approaches, holding a small iron hook. He uses it to hang a clay lantern above the brazier, its honey-hued glow extending the defensive ring outward. The lantern's soft light reveals tufts of camel fur wound around tent stakes, another fringe practice believed to distract predators expecting larger prey, quirky tidbit. You smack your forehead. Of course, camel fur scare tactics. The simple ingenuity leaves you amused at how resourceful traders were in harnessing everything at hand. You lean in to examine the clay lantern's etched patterns, geometric stars interlaced with calligraphic flourishes, each design a blessing for safe passage. The merchant neighbor claims the patterns were coded signals in the dark, conveying caravan status and route origin to allied camps' fringe rumor. You squint at the markings, half expecting to decode a secret message. Next food stop, 3 dunes east. Historians still argue whether those patterns served practical signaling purposes or were purely decorative flourishes. Open scholarly debate. For now you appreciate their dual function art and alarm. At your feet, sand shifts as camels settle down, lining their beasts' sides with warmth. You pat the neck of a sable-hued camel, its gentle breathing a reminder that the animals too rely on fire's glow for security. You whisper a joke under your breath. Best nightlight ever, huh? The camel blinks at you, perhaps in agreement, perhaps in silent judgment of your modern quips. A distant howl resonates off dune walls, a hollow cry that tugs at ancient fears. You stiffen, heart thudding, until the fire's roar drowns out the echo. You exhale. See, that's why we have fire alarms. The moment crystallizes how fire's brilliance transforms a howl into a lullaby of safety enough to coax you back into comfort despite primal worries. As embers settle into a glowing bed, you drag a smoldering coal across a handful of crushed mint leaves, creating a fragrant puff that dances across the camp. The mint's cooling aroma mingles with the juniper and stew, a sensory symphony designed to clear lungs and calm nerves. You inhale deeply, pondering whether modern spa treatments borrowed from these desert defense strategies, Mint Smoke Spa 2.0. Finally, you scoop a handful of warm ashes and let them sift through your fingers, reminding yourself that even after the fire dies, its residual heat and protective aura remain etched in scorched earth. You rise, brushing ash from your cloak's hem, and step back from the circle into the darker fringe. Though flame light fades quickly here, its memory lingers, an ember of reassurance you carry forward until morning. You return to your tent flap and pause, glancing back at the circle of lit hearths. They stand as silent sentinels, guardians made of flame and ingenuity. You tuck away your modern flashlight, confident that a ring of ancient glow will see you through. A final light joke surfaces. My survival kit is basically a campfire with extra steps. You laugh softly, nestling into your bedding, soothed by the echo of crackling embers and the desert's guarded hush. You follow a narrow side path away from the communal kitchen fires, drawn by a gentle waft of fragranced smoke drifting through the night air. Around you, small braziers sit nestled between dune crests, each glowing ember, topped with a handful of medicinal herbs, thyme, eucalyptus, and a scattering of caraway seeds, a healing smoke ritual traders adopted to soothe aches and ward off ailments after long days on the silk routes. By the 19th century, caravan leaders routinely scattered herbs onto hot coals, believing inhaling the warm vapors could realign bodily humors, ease rheumatism, and clear clogged sinuses. Mainstream fact. You step closer, inhaling deeply as the steam of herbal smoke curls between your fingers like a living balm. A fringe remedy whispers through the haze. Some caravans added goat's whey to the coals, convinced its lactic proteins would bind with heat to form a milky vapor that seeped into the skin, soothing inflammation and smoothing wind-chapped faces. Quirky tidbit. You imagine goat herders kneeling by the fires as they ladle whey from leather flasks onto the embers. Nothing like dairy vapor to moisturize your cheeks. You joke inwardly, yet admit the idea of whey-infused steam feels comfortingly rustic. The mingled scents rise in layered waves, camphorous eucalyptus first, then peppery thyme, and a final nutty undernote of caraway that tingles the back of your throat. You kneel near one brazier, noting how the herbs sizzle on the coals, sending faint sparks that drift into the night's black canopy. A telek in teal tunic kneads your shoulders, guiding you into a semi-recumbent posture on a woven reed mat. He motions for you to lean forward, tucking your head into a loose cotton wrap to concentrate the vapor around your face and chest. As you breathe the herbal steam, each inhalation feels like a cool breeze filtered through a mountain grove, an oasis of calm in the desert's vast expanse. Across the way, a merchant in russet robes stands over a larger brazier, brandishing a pair of iron fire tongs to adjust the heat. He sprinkles a pinch of powdered rose hips into the fire, explaining in a hushed tone that rose hips rich in vitamin C were believed to bolster immunity against fevers that haunted dusty caravan routes. Mainstream fact. You watch as the fire hisses, releasing a delicate rosy smoke that drapes around the merchant's shoulders like a fragrant shawl. You inhale, savoring the sweet tang. My morning vitamin supplement never smelled this poetic, you think amused. Nearby, a caravan physician wearing a lined linen cap sets out small reed baskets filled with dried mint leaves and crushed lavender flowers. Patrons dip copper ladles into the brazier's coals, then stir the smoke-laden pot infusing water. They later pour into tiny bowls for inhalation therapy. You pick up one bowl its surface, rippling with herbal steam, and press the rim to your lips. The warmth floods your lungs as you draw a slow breath, imagining nasal passages opening like sliding gates. If only my neti pot were this glamorous, you joke under your breath, ticking off the second modern aside. Historians still argue whether these caravan steam therapies were directly modeled on Persian bathhouse rituals or evolved independently as nomads experimented with desert florals open scholarly debate. Either way, the practice spread swiftly from small group fires to entire camp kitchens, featuring dedicated herbal corners, each flame a micro-clinic for traveler health. You lean back, handing your bowl to a passing telek, and notice how the smoke's gentle swirl seems to chase away not only physical tension, but mental fatigue, forming an almost hypnotic dance in the firelight. A fringe lore claims that a rare incense called desert myrrh, harvested from thorny shrubs at caravan stops, once adorned these healing fires. Its resinous smoke believed to confer prophetic dreams when inhaled before sleep. Quirky tidbit. You recall that while camel drivers shunned myrrh's price, small vials occasionally changed hands under lantern glow. Prophetic dreams, expensive side effect, you muse picturing yourself forecasting tomorrow's caravan profits in a dream. The smoky promise of mystical insight lingers in your imagination as you move to the next brazier. You pause by a trio of small hearths, each topped with slender reed bundles tied with saffron thread. At each, travelers took turns inhaling steam, guided by teleks who murmured counting prayers to time each inhalation, a ritual balancing breathwork with devotional focus. You trap the vapor in your cupped hands and inhale for a silent count of 4. Hold for 4, then exhale, repeating until your chest feels expansively calm. Who knew breathing exercises could be this fragrant, you joke to yourself, noting how modern apps could learn from this simple scented technique. The caravan's philosopher, draped in teal and russet layers, approaches with a reed-bound scroll inscribed with herbal formulas. He recites a poem praising the steam's virtues. He who walks the endless sands finds heaven in flame-kissed herbs, his voice weaving between the crackles. You catch a line about time's courage-imbuing qualities and chuckle at the notion of herb-infused bravery. Move over motivational posters, you think herbal steam trumps mantras. As the night deepens, you feel the steam's dual power. Its warmth soothes tired muscles, while its scent untangles the mind's webs. The telek drapes a blanket over your shoulders and offers a small cup of cool water flavored with crushed rose petals to cleanse your palate. You sip and exhale, carrying the herbal harmony forward. The desert's hush returns broken only by the last sizzle of coals and the distant clink of camel bells. You sit back, closing your eyes beneath the cotton wrap, letting the steam's lullaby weave a gentle cocoon. You think of goat's whey and prophetic myrrh rose hips and time prayers, each element a stitch in the tapestry of caravan medicine. A final light joke surfaces. My inhaler at home could use a spicy upgrade. You laugh softly, drowned in fragrance and flicker, ready to rest beneath the open sky. You step back to survey the ring of braziers before you struck by how their arrangement feels almost ritualistic, an earthly echo of celestial patterns. Traders often place the hearths in precise geometries, circles, triangles, Even interlocking squares designs believed to channel both heat and cosmic favor along the silk route's mainstream fact. As you rotate slowly on the sand, each brazier aligns with the next, forming a luminous mandala at ground level. The geometry isn't just aesthetic. Some caravan masters claimed the patterned heat created optimal warmth zones where traders could rotate between brazier seats to avoid both cold spots and scorching proximity. A fringe story floats on the evening breeze. Certain caravans stitched small compass symbols into their hearth arrangements, convinced that mirroring star constellations like Orion or Ursa Major would guide their souls as surely as their camels. Quirky tidbit. You barely stifle a laugh. Nothing like a camel-guided constellation mapping system, you think. But admit, the romanticism of star-linked campfires has undeniable charm. The Brazier's ironwork bowls each scored to gather specific coals. Shapes reflect the night sky's geometry, in miniature forging a link between dune and dome. You kneel by a triangular trio of hearths, each fire equidistant from the others, and notice the pattern echoes the three caravans that once journeyed together for mutual protection. A telek kneels beside you, tracing the sand with a finger, triangle for stability, circle for unity. He murmurs in low tones. You smile at the whisper of metaphor, caravan feng shui. You quip inwardly while feeling warmed by the thought of shape-based solidarity. Historians still argue whether these layouts were deliberate symbolic acts or simply practical spacing to prevent heat interference. Open scholarly debate. Either way, the triangular hearths cast a cozy triangle of light that invites fellowship or solitary reverie. You rise and step toward a larger circular ring of 7 braziers lit in a perfect heptagon. The circle's symmetry is hypnotic iron legs, forming a wheel of glowing spokes embers radiating like spokes of a sundial. You imagine secret codes passed between merchants by counting fires 7 for a safe passage to Samarkand 8, for a prosperous salt trade. A light joke surfaces. I'd need a fire counting app to keep up, you think, picturing yourself tapping imaginary icons on your palms. Despite the humor, the sensory dance of heat and geometry feels almost meditative, as though the pattern itself hums a lullaby. Nearby, a scholar in a dusty gray robe unfolds a reed-bound scroll depicting hearth diagrams from ancient Persian texts. He traces a dotted line along the heptagon's interior, explaining in hushed, scholarly tones that medieval engineers believed heat waves would amplify at central points, creating a gentle microclimate for merchants seated at the center mainstream fact. You lean in, cupping your hands to the largest brazier, and feel the heat intensify, a small confirmation that architectural mystique can become practical comfort. My home heat zoning is jealous, you joke, imagining your thermostat bristling with envy. Between 2 braziers lies a circle of smooth pebbles, arranged in an interlaced patterned stones, gathered from oases hundreds of miles away. The pebbles are spaced to act as miniature insulators, reflecting ember warmth back into the ring. A fringe account claims that women once used these pebble circles as fortune-casting tools, tossing additional stones into the layout and reading the resulting pattern for guidance. Quirky tidbit. You pick up a pebble and let it rest in the palm of your hand before dropping it back. Pet rock prophecy, you muse. Whether predictive or decorative, the pebble matrix adds a tactile layer to the fire's choreography. You step into a square of 4 braziers, each bowl carved with interlocking vine motifs. At the square's center, a low seat stone invites travelers to rest. You take a seat, feeling the measured warmth cradle you from all 4 sides, almost like a hearth hug. A camel driver in a teal turban joins you, balancing his bowl of stew on his knee. He smiles and offers a piece of flatbread square for balance. He says, echoing caravan proverbs, that geometry binds the 4 winds. You dip and bite the bread's char, perfect against the stew's quiet heat, and your own inner square feels propped up by symmetrical firelight. My chiropractor could learn from this, you think, relishing the gentle posture. In the dim circle beyond a ring of 9 small braziers, traces a spiral pattern wider at the edge, narrowing toward the center. The spiral locals whispered symbolize the journey from earth to eternity. You crouch to follow the spiral's curve with your gaze and with your foot, half dancing through the spiral step. Each brazier's glow shoots like a dot on a cosmic script, a map of soul's progress under desert stars. A third light joke surfaces. If only modern gyms had spiral cardio tracks, you giggle inwardly. A telek approaches with a reed basket of dried juniper berries, scattering them onto the spiral's fires. Blue smoke coils upward, giving the spiral an ethereal mist that seems to levitate between flames. The juniper scent tightens your chest pleasantly, as if the fire itself is offering aromatic ballads. The telek murmurs that juniper's protective powers are amplified when arranged in magical patterns, a final scholarly wink that blends mysticism with practicality. Historians still debate whether juniper patterns were medicinal prescriptions or theatrical displays to impress travelers. Open scholarly debate. Above you, the night sky mirrors the Earth's geometric patterns. Constellations align with braziers, planets slide along the spiral's arc, and the Milky Way sweeps in luminous curves. You tilt your head back and watch the stars reflect the fires below. It feels less like coincidence and more like a cosmic collaboration, a partnership between heaven and heart. I'm basically sitting in a fire-powered planetarium, you joke, imagining guided tours of celestial and coal-based wonders. As the night tiptoes toward dawn, you step from the geometric gallery of flame toward a single brazier at the edge of camp. It stands solitary yet radiant, marking both end and beginning. You kneel and stir its embers, watching how one fire alone can feel both vulnerable and profoundly comforting. The geometry of many can be replaced by the intimacy of one you realize. You cup the coals in your hands, letting the heat embed itself in your bones, and hold a silent gratitude for designs both grand and personal. You rise and brush sand from your trousers, feeling the gentle echo of every pattern underfoot. The architectural mystique of arranged fire has deepened your sense of place, a tapestry woven of flame and form, offering navigation, nourishment, and protection in balanced measure. You step back to the spiral, square, circle, and triangle once more, allowing the patterns to imprint their warmth on your memory. Finally, you stand beyond the last brazier, the geometry dissolving into the creeping light of dawn. The fires will soon fade, but their shapes will linger, etched in the sand in your mind and in caravan lore. You turn toward your tent, a light joke escaping your lips. Next time, I'll pack graph paper. You laugh softly, leaving the nocturnal architecture of flame to rest until night falls again, ready to guide, protect, and enchant once more. You settle onto a low sandbag bench beside a circle of flickering braziers as the night's chill seeps back in and the hearthlight becomes your spotlight for clandestine commerce. Merchants draped in indigo and russet tunics lean into the warmth, unrolling oil-treated parchments by ember glow to seal silk root contracts, agreements inked in flame light that carried more weight than daylight signatures, mainstream fact. As you recline on your heels, the firelight dances across gilded ledger, covers each page shimmering as traders negotiate bolt lengths, spice tariffs, and caravan fees. A fringe practice murmurs through the group. Some caravan notaries sprinkled brazier ash into their ink, believing the charcoal's essence imbued contracts with an unbreakable bond. Ash-sealed promises, they called it quirky tidbit. You wrinkle your nose at the idea. Nothing says contractual integrity like fossilized coals, you think, but admit the symbolism of ink mixed with fire's residue is undeniably poetic. Sparks drift upward as a scribe dips his quill into a leather-bound ink pot, the contract's opening line illuminated by the brazier's steady glow. Historians still argue whether ash-enhanced ink was widespread or a novelty reserved for elite merchant guilds. Open scholarly debate. You lean forward, shading your eyes with one hand while balancing a copper mug of spiced tea in the other. The tea's steam mingles with coal smoke, a heady meld of cardamom and ember tang. A Turkish silk dealer in saffron turban taps the table with a polished bone tablet marking each yardage measurement with rhythmic clicks. My digital calipers could never compete, you muse, picturing a modern gadget interrogated by Brazier's Silk Root Tech Conference. You joke inwardly. Beside you, a spice merchant hefts a tin of saffron threads, their crimson stigmas catching the brazier's glow like tiny rubies. He counts out strands for inspection, offering you a few to sniff. The aroma is sun-warmed sweetness, a sensory promise of future prosperity. My coffee beans are jealous of this luxury, you think, wryly recalling early mornings at home. You accept a single thread, inhaling deeply before tucking it into your pocket as a fragrant souvenir. The merchant next to him unfurls a small leather pouch of Persian turquoise, each stone polished to catch even the faintest ember light. He lays them out across a waxed cloth, negotiating price per carat under the lantern's halo. If only my credit card knew the value of glow-in-the-dark gems, you joke, glancing at your modern wallet. Yet, in this moment, the brazier's warmth turns every commodity into treasure, every deal into ritual. A rumor drifts through the Circle Caravan's once commissioned specialist ember accountants who tracked fuel consumption and trade margins by the Brazier's burn rate, reading coals like financial tea leaves quirky tidbit. You squint at the fire, half wondering if you'd pass an ember accountant exam. Rate of ash production per silk bale, you muse, entertaining the notion of flame-based spreadsheets. Historians still debate whether ember accounting was practical commerce or elaborate showmanship to impress visiting dignitaries' open scholarly debate. You adjust your posture to catch the heat as you consider the idea of pyrometric bookkeepers. Beyond the embers, camel drivers in teal shawls cluster exchanging whispered rumors about shifting dune politics and sultanate decrees. One driver murmurs of a new caravan fee imposed by a distant emir, while another relays news of a silk guild secret market in a hidden oasis. You sip your tea, feeling the ember-lit whispers swirl in your mind like smoky tendrils. My group chat notifications could never be this exclusive, you think, amused by the analog intrigue. Nearby, a pair of scribes collaborate on contract seals. They heat small iron molds over a brazier ember, imprinting caravan crests into molten beeswax. The fragrant wax drips onto parchment corners, glistening like honey in amber light. You lean close to watch a practice both ancient and intimate, fusing fire and governance. If only my wedding invites got this much fanfare, you muse, remembering your cousin's lackluster paper seals. A light joke surfaces as you shift. I'd pay extra for ember-shaped paper clips. You chuckle softly, mindful of the nighttime hush around the hearth. The traders don't blink. Commerce under firelight is serious business after all, yet their shoulders relax in the shared warmth, proving that even profit motives can be soothed by communal heat. You glance at your companion, who taps out a final tally on a bone abacus before signing his name with a flourish of coal-black ink. The signature curls into the parchment, bold and glowing in the brazier's light. You lean back, feeling the contract's weight settle between parchment and fire. A second light joke drifts by. My e-contract's loading circle would spin out here. The analog drama feels infinitely more satisfying. An elder merchant rises to propose a celebratory toast. He pours a measure of spiced wine into small clay cups, handing them around the circle. The wine's heady warmth slides through your chest, igniting a sense of camaraderie that transcends transactions. My office water cooler could never host an ember-fueled celebration, you think, lifting your cup. The group's cups clink softly, a low bell tone resonating over crackling coals. As you sip, you notice minute details: blackened coals nestled in iron bowls etched with caravan insignias, coals glowing core red in the dim half-light. A fringe belief once held that the deep red coals could reveal truth when a merchant's finger glowed hotter, touching false numbers, quirky tidbit. You stifle a grin, lie detector test coal addition, yet marvel at how fire interwove truth and commerce. A scholar murmurs to his colleague, debating whether trade by firelight was a pragmatic adaptation or a theatrical performance to instill trust among partners, open, scholarly debate. His commentary drifts through the embers, echoing earlier queries about campfire shapes. You nod as flames flicker, realizing fire-fueled not only flame, but trust a currency more precious than gold. The night air cools further, and the embers' glow intensifies in contrast. You pull your cloak tighter and watch as travelers gather final parchments, folding contracts with meticulous care. The brazier's warmth cradles the circle, a shared hearth that witnesses promises transcending dunes. You lean in a final time, catching a wisp of spice and ink, feeling the fire's power to forge connections. When the contracts are sealed, traders rise, stepping away from the circle with newfound alliance and mutual profit. You stand two embers pooling heat around your heels and tuck your own small deal, a silk scarf barter confirmed earlier, into your satchel. You pat the satchel as though soothing a camel's back and think, my online shopping cart could learn about anticipation. The final light joke surfaces as you step back into the darker sand ember tested, caravan approved. You take one last look at the hearth circle before following your companion toward the next campfire chapter. The contracts glint in the brazier's firelight, relics of commerce flickering with each ember. You tuck memories of ink, ash, and steam, both literal and bureaucratic, into your bones, ready for the next firelit ritual on the silk routes. You circle back to where several cavernous braziers glow beneath a canopy of stars, each one set upon a carved stone plinth festooned with garlands of desert flowers, an open-air sanctum of warmth and ritual comfort. Here, traders settled into nightly ceremonies, offering incense and libations to their flames as a benediction for safe passage across perilous terrain. By the 19th century, it was common practice on the silk routes to pour small bowls of scented oil and crushed frankincense into the coals, believing the fragrant smoke would carry prayers aloft and appease both desert spirits and wary guides. Mainstream fact. You step into the circle, feeling the hush of reverence descend as teliks in saffron caftans prepare the sacred rites. In your hand is a shallow copper saucer of sweet sandalwood oil, its surface shimmering in the brazier's glow. A fringed tradition held that blending sandalwood with crushed date pit ash enhanced the lantern's protective aura. Date ash mystery brew. They called it quirky tidbit. You snort at the notion, nothing like fossilized fruit in your incense, but admire the resourcefulness of desert perfumers. You tilt the saucer to let a drop of oil hiss as it strikes the coals, sending a ripple of golden smoke upward. The scent is mellow and woody, a calm anchor in the night air. A murmur runs through the traders gathered around, each holding their own saucer or ceramic bowl. One merchant in indigo robes lifts a slender reed to stir the herbs in his brazier, clumps of myrrh, shards of amber resin, and a pinch of crushed rose petals sparkling like embers themselves. The mixture flares into a fragrant plume, and you inhale, imagining yourself repelled from harm by scented fortification. A light joke surfaces. My bug spray could learn from this fragrance fortress, You think smiling at the insect-free haven created by ancient aromatherapy. Across the circle, the lead caravan master stands before a larger central brazier, carved with lion motifs, symbols of courage and resilience. He pours a smooth libation of date wine from a gilded flask amber liquid cascading into the embers. The wine's hiss is a musical note, a promise of dreams filled with safe arrival. Date, wine, farewell, toast the master intones in Ottoman Turkish, his voice resonating like distant thunder. You reciprocate with a silent nod, and the taste of sweet fermented fruit mingles with smoke on your tongue. A second light joke drifts in. My hotel minibar can't match this send-off. Nearby, a female traveler in a teal wrap extends a reed-woven basket of crushed jasmine buds. Each trader takes a pinch, sprinkling it into the braziers with reverent care. The jasmine smoke curls around their faces, bathing everyone in a soft floral hush. Jasmine lullaby, smoke you muse, picturing bedtime in a bottle. Historians still argue whether jasmine was chosen for dreamy fragrance or as a social cue signaling the night's end. Open scholarly debate. Either way, the jasmine's whispering aroma calms the camp's collective heartbeat. On one side of the circle, a humble scribe kneels beside a brazier built low to the ground. He dips a wooden ladle into a shallow bowl of cool rose water and flicks droplets into the embers, each splash sending puffs of pink-hued steam upward. The rose water libation is said to symbolize purity of intent and emotional renewal. Before sleep, a nightly cleanse, not just of body, but of spirit. Mainstream fact. You cup the steam in your hands, breathing deeply, feeling your mind unclench like a purse finally opened. A fringe belief suggested that those who skipped the rosewater ritual were doomed to restless dreams full of sandstorms and lost caravans. Quirky tidbit. You cast a wary glance at anyone wandering away before the rite concludes. Avoid bedtime anxiety. Folks you think, then let the floral steam carry away any lingering unease. The camp quiets further, as though the very night is holding its breath for the ritual's completion. A telek approaches with a bowl of charred resin from acacia trees, tapping it gently against the brazier's rim. The resin bursts into fragrant spirals, each curling plume a prayer in smoke. You note how the acacia's scent is sharp and resinous, like a desert pine grove distilled into a single note. A third light joke bubbles up my scented candle collection bowls in respect. Beneath the humor, you sense how these rituals transform flame into a living conduit between earth and sky, human and divine. Once the final handful of incense and libations are offered, the caravan master raises his hands in blessing and chants a protective invocation, words you can't fully decode, but whose cadence resonates deeply in your chest. The flame's glow intensifies for a heartbeat, then settles into a steady, comforting blaze. Traders bow their heads, exchanging quiet salutations. You join in feeling the shared warmth bind you into the caravan's circle of trust. With the ritual complete, you step close to the brazier's rim, pressing a palm against the warmed metal. It radiates a tempered heat, that feels like the heartbeat of the desert itself, steady, enduring, alive. You imagine tomorrow's dawn, the brazier's embers still glowing beneath dunes, guiding early risers back to camp. The ritual's lullaby was not the crackle of coals, but the communal hush that followed a silence steeped in fragrant smoke and sacred promise. As you turn to drift toward your tent, you catch a final wisp of incense mixing with jasmine and rose a sensory echo that you tuck into memory. You murmur a soft Afiet Olsun, borrowing the caravan master's farewell as you step away. The braziers stand sentinel guardians of warmth and comfort, their ritual flames flickering in the desert's quiet hymn. And with each step, you carry the ceremony's grace forward, soothed by the knowledge that guided flames await your return. You step beyond the scent of jasmine and rosewater into a quieter enclave where braziers stand ringed by slender wooden stakes hung with talismans, tiny leather pouches, parchment scrolls, and carved bones, each an emblem of divine protection. Here, traders pause their deals and dinners to perform nightly prayers, whispering sacred verses into glowing embers as though the flame itself were a willing witness to their words. By the 19th century, it was common for Silk Route caravans to consecrate their campfires with recitations from holy texts. Believing the fire's flame would carry their petition skyward and shield them from both earthly and spiritual threats, mainstream fact. You settle on a low stone bench embers at your feet and feel the hush of reverence settle around you. A fringed tail drifts through the dry air. Some caravan leaders tied miniature Quranic amulets to stakes above the fire, convinced the heat would amplify divine blessings and ward off jinn lurking in desert shadows. Quirky tidbit, you smirk. Nothing like a sun-pelted amulet to ward off supernatural freeloaders. You joke inwardly, but admit the fusion of sacred text and flame ignites a comforting sense of cosmic support. The talismans sway gently as a breeze stirs their leather straps, creaking like hushed door hinges. At the circle's center, a senior merchant in saffron-lined robes kneels by the brazier, unrolling a parchment scroll inscribed with flowing calligraphy. His voice, low and steady, carries the opening verse of a prayer for safe passage. O Lord of the heavens, guide our steps and guard our hearts. As he speaks, each ember flickers in response, the flames seeming to lean forward in attentiveness. You close your eyes to listen, recalling the crackle of braziers in earlier sections and how fire's voice became a lullaby across dunes. You lean forward and touch the edge of the brazier's iron bowl, feeling its tempered heat pulse like a heartbeat as the prayer flows. The merchant pauses to sprinkle a handful of frankincense resin onto the coals. Each resin bead crackles, releasing a saffron gold smoke that curls into the night sky. Incense prayers, you muse, my morning office smudge stick could never achieve this. The short joke dissolves into the ritual's gravity. Across the ring, a caravan physician in indigo caftan stands by a post draped with red wool strips, protective wards embroidered with sacred phrases. She murmurs her own prayer, touching each strip in turn before draping it back over the stake ensuring every traveler sleeps under a canopy of words. Words woven into wool. You think my hoodie's pockets should hold charms like these. Despite the modern aside, the earnest care invested in each ward underscored a communal faith stronger than steel. Historians still argue whether these talismans were borrowed from Bedouin desert rites or adapted from urban shrine traditions in Persian bazaars. Open scholarly debate. You lean in to examine the intricate stitches and faded inks, noting how some pouches hold tiny fragments of parchment, while others contain powdered herbs meant to purify the fire's breath. You pluck up the courage to whisper a short verse into a neighboring talisman. Light the way, shield the night. You murmur half in jest, half in hope. The flame flickers in what feels like acknowledgement. Nearby, a young scholar in a linen cap balances a copper censer spiked with burning coals on his cupped palm, wafting fragrant smoke across his cloaked companions. He recites a benediction for healing. May our bodies mend as swiftly as embers transform to ash, and each inhalation seems to ease the caravan's collective weariness. You inhale the spicy myrrh aroma and let your shoulders unwind in the breeze. My diffuser never smelled so devout you think smiling at the serene absurdity. A merchant in russet vest retrieves a small iron chop from his belt, a heated iron branded with a sacred seal. He presses it gently into the outer rim of the brazier's bowl, leaving an imprint that glows briefly before cooling. The branded seal is said to bind protective power to the hearth, a fiery signature that wards off misfortune. A fringe account claims this branding ritual was once used to mark caravan ownership and divine favor. In equal measure, quirky tidbit. You glance at the glowing symbol, half expecting it to pulse with mystical energy. Branded blessings, you joke silently, my gym membership would envy this level of commitment. The circle falls into a shared silence as the brazier's glow becomes the congregation's altar. The senior merchant resumes his prayer, this time invoking a safe crossing of rivers and mountain passes. His words weave between the stakes, each talisman seeming to resonate a chorus of whispered hopes. You bring a hand to your heart, feeling the communal pulse of trust, echoed in flame. Suddenly, a wind gusts across the circle, sending a ragged sheet of talisman parchment fluttering like a wounded bird. You leap to grab it before it scatters into the sand. In doing so, you glimpse an inscription you hadn't noticed, a line from an ancient poem promising deliverance from storms, both sand and soul. You tuck the parchment back in place, heart warmed by its reminder. Storm-proof poetry, you muse, my weather alerts could read like this. A third light joke surfaces as the wind dies away. If only my emails landed this gently. You laugh softly, aware of the delicate balance between humor and reverence in this space. The caravan master nods at you, understanding the levity, a modern echo of age-old camaraderie. As the final verses drift skyward, the embers settle into glowing coals that pulse like a calm, steady heart. The merchant rolls up his scroll and offers a nod of dismissal. The prayers are complete, the talismans charged for another night. Travelers step forward to extinguish their own small braziers, relocating the embers to discreet spots among the dunes where they'll smolder until dawn. You collect your own coals with a small iron shovel, placing them in a leather pouch for tomorrow's first warmth. You watch as each flame-laden brazier becomes a memory, its protective aura distilled into talisman pockets, parchment writs, and scented smoke. The reverence lingers in the desert hush, a sacred tether between people and flame. You fold your own talisman, whispering a final benediction. May your path be lit, your heart at peace. The words feel weighty, yet comforting as a well-worn cloak. When at last the embers dwindle to soft warmth, you step away into the night's deeper shadow, carrying the hum of prayers in your bones. The stars above seem to shine brighter against the dark, as though echoing the protective glow you leave behind. You whisper one last Afiat Olsen, a borrowed blessing embroidered into your voice. The caravan master's ritual of flame and faith has become your own, an ember of serenity glowing in your chest as you drift toward sleep. You slip away from the prayer circle beneath a sky strewn with quiet stars, drawn instead to a flurry of activity around a row of makeshift work tables illuminated by small brazier lamps. Here, caravan artisans, painters, wood carvers, and leather workers gather under the dancing firelight to craft ephemeral murals and carvings on tent walls and wooden crates, their art brought vividly to life by ember glow. By the 19th century, these firelit workshops were a nightly fixture on the silk routes, showcasing craftsmen's skills and enlivening the camp's after-dinner hours mainstream fact. As you step closer, the scent of fresh hide and wet pigment mingles with coal smoke, forming a sensory palette as diverse as the goods carried across continents. An eccentric painter in a russet tunic flaunts a fringe technique. He mixes powdered lapis lazuli with camel milk to yield a rich azure pigment said to glimmer under brazier light like crushed midnight sky's quirky tidbit. You watch as he brushes the color onto a linen tint, creating a nightscape that reflects the heavens above. You can't help but grin. My budget hotel walls could use this upgrade. You think, though, you admit the idea of latte blues is undeniably striking. Historians still argue whether these lapis-infused paints were common folk art or an elite novelty imported from wealthy patrons' open scholarly debate. Nearby, a wood carver works by the flicker of a small driftwood-fueled brazier, his saffron-tinged tunic glowing under the sparks. He chisels intricate vine patterns into a cedar plank, each relief catching firelight like delicate filigree. You kneel to observe his technique, noting how he angles the tool so the brazier's warmth softens the cedar, making carving smoother. The cracked wood curls away in slender shavings, drifting like pale confetti. My woodworking tools at home would envy these hot seat practices. You joke under your breath, amused by fire-assisted craftsmanship. A leather worker stands by a larger coal brazier, the intense heat softening thick goat hides until they're pliable. She stretches strips across an iron framework, crafting sturdy sandal straps with embossed caravan symbols. The accoutrements bear date cluster motifs, a nod to the desert's bounty. My shoe repair guy could learn a thing or two, you muse picturing dear old cobbler confounded by flame-tempered leather. Yet the method is practical. Heat-treated leather resists cracking and molds perfectly to camel saddles. Across a canvas backdrop, a scribe swiftly sketches scene after scene, marketplaces in Kashgar Mountain, passes in Kashmir, and bustling port towns by the Arabian Sea. Each drawing glows with ember highlights, as the scribe lightly brushes a glaze of shell gold powdered gold leaf bound in gum arabic onto outlines. In flame's reflection, the gold flakes sparkle like miniature suns. My highlight pen wishes it had this flare you think watching the shimmer. The flicker imbues each stroke with life, transforming simple sketches into radiant masterpieces. A fringe rumor suggests that some caravans employed fire whisperers, artists believed to inhale the smoke to ignite creative visions, then channel those visions onto their canvases, an intoxicating union of flame and fancy, quirky tidbit. You inhale a whiff of eucalyptus-infused smoke from a nearby healing brazier, half expecting inspiration to strike. If only my writer's block could be cured by coal fumes, you muse stifling a cough at the smoky draft. The night deepens as braziers dim to ember bowls. The artisans lean close, applying final touches, a painter dotting LEDs of shell gold, a carver polishing fine tendrils with a heated iron burnisher, a leather worker stamping hot branded seals of clan insignias. Each act is underscored by fire's pulse warmth and light guiding skilled hands in low lantern hours. You lean back on your haunches, letting the scene's creative symphony wash over you like a lullaby of sparks. Your companion taps your shoulder, pointing to a traveler's tent adorned with fresh mural scenes, camel caravans rising over dunes, merchants haggling under silken awnings, travelers seeking shelter by firelight. The mural's flourish extends to the tent's entry flap, curling petals and vine motifs forming a blooming border around the door. You trace a finger over the painted silk, feeling the heat-gifted pigment still warm beneath your touch. My wallpaper back home could never capture this kind of spontaneity, you joke, marveling that even fleeting art becomes lasting memory. As the brazier lamps gutter low, the artisans dampen their brushes and sheathe their chisels, stepping back to admire their work, illuminated by the camp's final embers. The night's gallery comes alive. Tent walls, leather buckets, and wooden crates now bear the vibrant imprint of human creativity fueled by fire. You step away, carrying the hush of creation in your bones, grateful for flame's dual power to warm bodies and ignite artistry. You slip away from the prayer circle beneath a sky strewn with quiet stars, drawn instead to a flurry of activity around a row of makeshift work tables illuminated by small brazier lamps. Here, caravan artisans, painters, wood carvers, and leather workers gather under the dancing firelight to craft ephemeral murals and carvings on tent walls and wooden crates, their art brought vividly to life by ember glow. By the 19th century, these firelit workshops were a nightly fixture on the silk routes, showcasing craftsmen's skills and enlivening the camp's after-dinner hours mainstream fact. As you step closer, The scent of fresh hide and wet pigment mingles with coal smoke, forming a sensory palette as diverse as the goods carried across continents. An eccentric painter in a russet tunic flaunts a fringe technique. He mixes powdered lapis lazuli with camel milk to yield a rich azure pigment said to glimmer under brazier light, like crushed midnight skies, quirky tidbit. You watch as he brushes the color onto a linen tint, creating a nightscape that reflects the heavens above. You can't help but grin. My budget hotel walls could use this upgrade. You think, though, you admit the idea of latte blues is undeniably striking. Historians still argue whether these lapis-infused paints were common folk art or an elite novelty, imported from wealthy patrons. Open scholarly debate. Nearby, a woodcarver works by the flicker of a small driftwood-fueled brazier, his saffron-tinged tunic glowing under the sparks. He chisels intricate vine patterns into a cedar plank, each relief catching firelight like delicate filigree. You kneel to observe his technique, noting how he angles the tool so the brazier's warmth softens the cedar, making carving smoother. The curved wood curls away in slender shavings, drifting like pale confetti. My woodworking tools at home would envy these hot seat practices. You joke under your breath, amused by fire-assisted craftsmanship. A leather worker stands by a larger coal brazier, the intense heat softening thick goat hides until they're pliable. She stretches strips across an iron framework, crafting sturdy sandal straps with embossed caravan symbols. The accoutrements bear date cluster motifs, a nod to the desert's bounty. My shoe repair guy could learn a thing or two. You muse, picturing your cobbler confounded by flame-tempered leather. Yet the method is practical. Heat-treated leather resists cracking and molds perfectly to camel saddles. Across a canvas backdrop, a scribe in indigo robes swiftly sketches scene after scene, marketplaces in Kashgar, mountain passes in Kashmir, and bustling port towns by the Arabian Sea. Each drawing glows with ember highlights as the scribe lightly brushes a glaze of shell gold powdered gold leaf bound in gum arabic onto outlines. In flame's reflection, the gold flakes sparkle like miniature suns. My highlight pen wishes it had this flare. You think watching the shimmer, the flicker, imbues each stroke with life, transforming simple sketches into radiant masterpieces. A fringe rumor suggests that some caravans employed fire whisperers, artists believed to inhale the smoke to ignite creative visions, then channel those visions onto their canvases, an intoxicating union of flame and fancy, quirky tidbit. You inhale a whiff of eucalyptus-infused smoke from a nearby healing brazier, half expecting inspiration to strike. If only my writer's block could be cured by coal fumes, you muse, stifling a cough at the smoky draft. Amid the artistry, a pair of apprentice painters dab small flames onto resinous pigment pots, heating the mixture so it flows in thicker, more molten strokes. You lean forward as one apprentice carefully swirls a heated brush tip into a pot of ochre, and sienna then drips molten dabs onto a leather panel. The droplets harden instantly into jewel-like studs. You could swear the panel looks like a mosaic of desert sunsets, each bead of pigment catching light like captive suns. My mosaic classes would drool at this technique. You think marveling at such fire-forged detail. Behind them, a metalworker uses fire tongs to hold a small shard of meteoric iron over the coals, heating it until it glows white hot. With swift hammer strikes on an anvil carried from an oasis forge, he shapes the shard into tiny camel figurines. Each miniature creature bears etched saddlebags and bridles, a testament to both cosmic provenance and human craft. You watch entranced, thinking, my 3D printer could never handle this kind of heat. The night deepens, and the braziers dim to ember bowls. The artisans lean close, applying final touches, a painter dotting circles of shell gold, a carver polishing vine tendrils with a heated iron burnisher, a leather worker stamping hot branded seals of clan insignias. Each act is underscored by fire's pulse, warmth, and light, guiding skilled hands in low lantern hours. You lean back on your haunches, letting the scene's creative symphony wash over you like a lullaby of sparks. A caravan musician draped in teal and saffron drifts into the workshop with a small frame drum. She taps a gentle rhythm that harmonizes with the coal's crackle, setting the artisan's work to a beat. Painters sink brush strokes to its cadence. Wood carvers align chisels to its tempo. You glide your fingers along a warm table edge, synchronizing with the primal duet of drum and flame. My keyboard clicks want choir robes, you joke, lulled by the unexpected collaboration of art and rhythm. Your companion taps your shoulder, pointing to a traveler's tent adorned with fresh mural scenes, camel caravans rising over dunes, merchants haggling under silken awnings, travelers seeking shelter by firelight. The mural's flourish extends to the tent's entry flap, curling petals and vine motifs, forming a blooming border around the door. You trace a finger over the painted silk, feeling the heat-gifted pigment still warm beneath your touch. My wallpaper back home could never capture this kind of spontaneity. You think marveling that even fleeting art becomes lasting memory. As the brazier lamps gutter low, the artisans dampen their brushes and sheathe their chisels, stepping back to admire their work. Illuminated by the camp's final embers, the night's gallery comes alive. Tent walls, leather buckets, and wooden crates now bear the vibrant imprint of human creativity fueled by fire. You step away, carrying the hush of creation in your bones, grateful for flame's dual power to warm bodies and ignite artistry. The embers hold a final warmth underfoot as you descend a low dune slope toward your tent. Each glowing hearth has etched memory azure skies, born of lapis and milk-carved vines, whispering in wood leather straps, molded by heat gold flares dancing on parchment. The creative fire lit the artisan's spirits and now kindles your own a spark to carry forward into darkness and dreams. As you nestle into your bedding, you feel as though the fire's ghostly glow remains in your vision, a gallery of flame that will accompany your dreams tonight and beyond. You wander toward a cluster of low brazier tables where candlelight once guided artisans. Now embers cradle exotic delights, sizzling atop mesh grape baskets. Traders gather around toasting rare nut seeds and fruits over glowing coals, an age-old practice on the silk routes that transformed simple provisions into fragrant delicacies. Mainstream fact. Each ember-kissed morsel releases plumes of caramelized sweetness, pistachios snap with buttery warmth, pomegranate arrows pop like rubies, and spiced almonds hiss with notes of cinnamon and clove. The air hums with anticipation, and you lean in entranced by the camp's gourmet theater, where fire is both chef and muse. A fringe recipe drifts through the culinary haze. Some caravans once roasted hyrax berries, tiny desert fruits said to ripen only beneath full moon glow, believing their ember-roasted juice conferred long life and vivid dreams. Quirky tidbit. You sniff the smoky air. Nothing like mythical berries to spice up snack time, you think. But admit the mystique of lunar-ripened fruits fondly tickles your imagination. The sizzling baskets glow like lanterns of flavor, each morsel a tiny ember-carved masterpiece. You snag a blistered date warmed on a slender skewer, its sugar-cracked skin offering a soft chew that bursts into honeyed nectar on your tongue. A silk merchant neighbor in a teal tunic nudges you toward a bowl of cardamom-spiked walnuts, their nutty smoke layering with date sweetness. My trail mix at home just got outclassed. You joke inwardly, cradling a warm walnut cluster as the coal's heat mingles with spiced oil coats your fingers. Across the embers, a spice dealer in saffron robes lifts a brass sieve filled with sesame seeds, toasting them until they crackle like tiny fireworks. He shakes the seeds through the mesh, releasing a nutty aroma that drifts over the camp like a fragrant hailstorm. My toaster oven's light just flickered in envy, you muse, picturing modern kitchens besieged by artisanal seeds. You dip your wooden spoon into the basket, tasting a few sesame bribes, earthy, smoky, and entirely moreish. The Telic, ever attentive, offers a morsel of rosewater glazed apricot dusted with ground pistachio. The fruit's rosy tang and nutty crunch form a desert sun duet on your palate. You close your eyes, savoring the warm rush of sugar and oil, a perfect counterpoint to Section 4's savory stews and Section 12's sweet finale. My afternoon snack routine just got a glow up, you think, letting the sweetness ripple through your senses. Nearby, an Ottoman confectioner wheels out a small copper pan balanced on embers. He stirs a bubbling syrup of honey saffron and crushed cardamom pods before folding in almonds and slivered figs. As the mixture thickens, he spreads it onto a marble slab heated by glowing coals, chiseling the half-set mixture into diamond shards with a swift iron blade. My candy maker at home would need a brazier to match this performance, you joke, admiring the confectioner's lightning-fast cuts as the candy sparkles like gilded glass. A fringe rumor surfaces that certain caravans infuse their embers with aromatic sandalwood chips, imparting a smoky floral glaze into roasted delicacies and creating an edible aura, said to soothe heartache and quell homesickness. Quirky tidbit. You close your eyes and inhale the warm, woody steam. My diffuser's on, notice you muse, then bite into a sugar-bound walnut, imagining a heart-soothing effect that rivals any modern fad. Historians still argue Whether these over-the-fire sweets were practical caloric boosts for cold nights or elaborate displays of wealth aimed at impressing visiting dignitaries opened scholarly debate. You watch merchants savor their sugar-spiced fruits, noting how the communal act of sweetness sharing feels both practical and ceremonial. The Brazier's glow transforms snack time into a nightly festival, a delicate balance of necessity and extravagance. Your companion offers you a taste of ember-roasted chickpeas tossed with crushed cumin and turmeric. The legumes' crunchy exteriors give way to tender interiors perfumed with spice. You pop a chickpea. My popcorn will feel obsolete, you think, and crunch with delight as the aroma unfurls around you. The telic nods knowingly, adding cumin seeds directly onto hot coals, sending up golden smoke that quickens your taste buds for every ember-kissed bite. Across the fire, a pastry maker in a linen cap unveils trays of tiny phyllo parcels filled with honey-dripped walnuts, their crisp layers kissed by coals. He flutters them briefly above the embers, allowing the heat to puff the dough into golden pillows. You reach out, grabbing a warm triangle, and the pastry melts in your mouth, flaky, sweet, and ephemeral. My local bakery could never handle this level of flash baking, you quip, mentally wiping a honey droplet from your beard. A final treat arrives, small ceramic cups of saffron and rosewater sherbet, flash chilled by coals, heated, then doused with iced spring water to create a creamy, fragrant sorbet. The sherbet's cool sweetness contrasts the ember's warmth, a sensory yin and yang that leaves you delightedly balanced. My freezer's jealous of this chemistry, set you joke, spooning a mouthful of the sherbet and feeling the desert night settle softly around your senses. You lean back, cradling an empty cup and a few crumbs of pastry, watching the sweet's final embers smolder. The brazier's flames dance in time with your satiated sighs, a gentle harmony of fullness and warmth. You trace playful patterns in the sand with your sandal toe, remembering snail shell oils in section 6 and fragrant oils in section 9. Tonight's feast feels like the desert's ultimate palate tour. As the confectioners pack away their tools and the last seeds crackle into silence, you rise, brushing nut crumbs from your robes. The cool night air returns, and the glow of sugar-blackened coals dims to ember rust. You tuck into your satchel a small copper tin of charred sesame seeds, a precious souvenir for future cravings. My snack drawer is about to get exotic, you think, grinning at the promise of flaming flavors to come. With taste buds warmed and heart light, you step away from the ember tables carrying desert sweetness in your bones. The brazier's smoky lullaby lingers in your breath as you drift toward rest, sated, soothed, and slightly dazzled by fire's alchemy of flavor. You slip away from scented confections and navigate toward a secluded enclave where braziers burn within stone alcoves carved into the dunes. Silent sentinels rumored to be watched over by spectral guardians. Legends spoke of fire-warden spirits who emerged at the stroke of midnight, their forms woven of smoke and ember, patrolling the camp's perimeter to thwart saboteurs and supernatural threats. By the 19th century, traders whispered that these guardians, known as Atishdars, could be summoned by lighting braziers in specific configurations, often by arranging coals into spiral runes etched in sand mainstream fact. As you approach the spiral-etched hearth, a shiver of anticipation ripples through you, even though the coals hiss in familiar earthly tones. A fringe account insists that some caravans installed tiny iron bells around these braziers, each bell tied with red thread. When a guardian passed, the bells would tinkle in harmony with the crackle of coals, a signal that unseen protectors approved of the camp's safety quirky tidbit. You crouch near one brazier and reach out to lightly brush a bell's rim. No ghostly chime follows. Yet the notion of an invisible ally warms you more than the embers themselves. Historians still debate whether Atishdar lore originated in Zoroastrian fire temples or emerged organically among desert nomads, adapting ancestral myths. Open scholarly debate, or the night deepens and you trace the spiral rune with a stick following its curve from outer ring to flickering center. Each brazier along the spiral emits a slightly different hue, deep crimson from dung amber, from driftwood coal steel blue undertones, each flame signifying a stage of the guardian's passage from earth to sky. A telek kneels beside you, murmuring that when the final fire glows brightest, the Atishdar's presence is strongest, holding back both sandstorms and lurking threats. You tilt your head, imagining a smoky silhouette prowling the dunes beyond the firelight, half spirit, half flame. Nearby, a caravan leader in indigo robes sprinkles powdered frankincense into the central brazier, sending golden smoke plumes swirling upward like ghostly dancers. Offerings to the warden, he whispers, his breath carried away on the night breeze. You inhale the spicy resin trace, feeling a curious calm settle in your chest. My security system uses more beeps, you joke mentally, but maybe not more mystique. A soft scuffle of feet alerts you to a pair of guides clad in saffron turbans who step forward to realign fallen coals in the outer braziers. Their movements are deliberate, as though honoring a sacred boundary. You ask a whisper-voiced guide whether he believes the spirits truly roam. He nods gravely, recounting how on a moonless night 2 seasons past, an intruding band of thieves fled unseen when the braziers blazed with unearthly intensity, flames lancing higher than fuel should allow. Whether divine intervention or collective fear, the thieves vanished into the sands, leaving only abandoned packs behind. You crouch to examine a scattered pack, the leather straps still warm, footprints trailing away toward darker dunes. A light joke drifts in. If only my burglar alarm took flame cues, yet the desert hush holds a tremor of something beyond jest. You let your fingertips rest on the coals. Their heat pulses like a heartbeat, an echo of the camp's living will to survive. Across the spiral, a small group of travelers chant quietly, their voices weaving protective verses into the air. Each phrase is punctuated by coals snapping a mantra in flame and breath. One traveler dips a reed brush into a bowl of camel's hair ash, mixed with rose petal oil, then paints a rune on her palm before pressing it to the brazier's rim. The contact leaves a faint imprint that appears to glow when the firelight strikes it just so. You try it yourself, pressing your ash-marked palm to the brazier, and for a fleeting moment, imagine your handprint smoldering with spectral fire. My photocopy at home wouldn't capture that you muse inwardly. Historians still argue whether Atishtars were truly invoked by these rites or represented caravan leaders' desire to personify the protective power of fire itself. Open scholarly debate. You step back, letting the ritual symbolism wash over you. Fire as defender ritual, as contract community, as beneficiary. A wandering scholar, his linen cap dusted with sand, approaches and uncovers a small codex bound in leather. He reads aloud an ancient passage. In fire's circle, no shadow dares linger. The phrase resonates like a promise. You lean on the brazier's edge, feeling a tactile solidity beneath your fingers, a reminder that flame can be both ephemeral and enduring. You rise and follow the spiral outward footsteps, tracing the myth's arc from inner sanctum to camp's edge. Each brazier's glow diminishes gradually until you stand at the final flame before open desert. The fire here is modest, a sentinel's last watch, its coals embedded in a shallow pit, lined with stones. You stand guard for a moment, your silhouette framed by the coals' warmth, imagining yourself a human extension of the Atishtar's protective circle. A sudden wind skims across the dune crest, scattering hot embers into the night and carrying a whisper of flame-born lullaby. You inhale deeply, as though breathing in the guardian's essence, and exhale a soft vow to carry this protection onward, whether in dreams or dawn's light. A stray thought surfaces my firewall at home, could use a guardian spirit. You smile at the modern parallel, even as the desert's ancient mystique settles in your bones. With a final glance at the spiral of braziers and their ghostly promise of safety, you step away, returning to the camp under a canopy of stars that now seem less empty, more like companions in the flame's ritual theater. You tuck memories of glowing circles and whispered rites into your heart, ready to rest beneath the desert sky, ever watched over by fire's spectral guardians. You rise before first light, the desert air crisp against your skin, and stride toward the camp's central hearth, where only embers and ash remain. Dawn stretches across the dunes, painting them in muted apricot and smoky mauve, while the ghost of last night's flames glows faintly beneath a thin veil of sandy residue. By the 19th century, traders prized these morning embers as silent beacons, proof of a night spent in solidarity and shared stories. Each campfire's remains marking survival against the elements' mainstream fact. As you kneel to stir a handful of ash with your fingertip, you sense the echoes of every laugh, negotiation, and prayer that danced atop these coals. A fringe notion surfaces. Some merchants believed that mixing a pinch of these cooling ashes into their morning brew would impart memory of the fire's warmth, strengthening bonds among caravan members for the day ahead. Quirky tidbit. You snort. Nothing like coffee with a side of burnt sand, but admit the sentiment feels poetic. Turning remnants of flame into ritual fuel for camaraderie. You dip a small copper ladle into the ember pit, watching as the sluiced ash drifts like tiny gray snowflakes before landing among scattered pebbles and date pit husks. Historians still argue whether morning ashes were deliberately collected to carry the night spirit forward or simply swept aside to clear cooking spaces. Open scholarly debate. You crouch and scoop a small pile into a leather pouch, an impromptu souvenir, and tuck it into your satchel alongside the camel fur scare talisman from Section 5 and that pebble from Section 3. Each token feels like a compass spun from memory and ember. As the sun peeks over a distant ridge, you stand and brush sand from your trousers, noticing how the ash's cool powder clings to your palms, a tactile callback to goat hair mitts buffing your skin in Section 6. You laugh softly. My hand sanitizer could never compete as you wipe grit into the sand, leaving your literal mark beside last night's runes and talismans. Beyond the central hearth, you spy the spiral of braziers from Section 7, their hollow rings, now empty stands, and iron legs twisted into dawn's silhouette. You recall the Atishdar's legend, feeling its protective echo in the quiet camp. A second light joke drifts in fire pit GPS, recalibrated for sunrise. You wander through the spiral's path following where the braziers once blazed, letting the geometry guide your steps toward the day's first water bucket. A nearby cook rattles a wooden bucket, drawing clear oasis water to rake steam and scrub the blackened bowls. He hums a tune from last night's stew's heady simmer. You lean on the bucket's rim, admiring how the cold water's splash dissolves soot into swirling trails. It reminds you of the rosewater rinse in Section 14 and the cool plunge pools in Section 11, each ritual washing away yesterday's fatigue. My morning shower thanks these traditions, you think, as water laps at your ankles. To your left, remnants of last night's art gallery stand, tent flaps loosened from fresh murals, cedar carvings dusted with ash, and leather sandals cooled by dawn. You step inside one tent, finding the painter's lapis and camel milk sky still vivid against golden clouds. A light joke surfaces. My living room walls might request repainting. You close the flap and carry on feeling every brushstroke's ember-lit magic pulse in your memory. A group of scholars gathers by the row of collapsed fire tongs and cooled charcoal, their reed-bound maps spread on a folding table. One traces the caravan's path with a stick pointing to last night's rest points atop flame-lit dunes. They debate whether morning ash depths could measure fuel efficiency or simply judge last night's hospitality. Open scholarly debate. You hover, listening to their scholarly banter, ash metric tonnage for true artistry, and smile at their earnest curiosity. You nod, offering your pouch of ash as field data, prompting a ripple of laughter among the researchers. You continue toward the cooking hearth, where clay pots of half-finished pilaf and stew simmer on new coals. The morning heat wakes the spices saffron's golden, trickle cinnamon's warm curl. A cook tosses in a fresh sprig of mint, sending steam dancing above the pot's rim. You inhale, savoring the memory of spiced almonds and honeyed pastries from Section 12. A third light joke surfaces. My brunch Snapchat filter would wish it smelled this good. At the edge of camp, you find the Soak Havaslara pools, still shimmering beneath rose-tinted sky. The cooling waters reflect the dawn, a final echo of desert rituals. You dip a foot in feeling the brisk embrace, like waking from a scented dream in Section 11. The pool's marble edge, smoothed by centuries of use, anchors you to a lineage of travelers refreshed by cold water and hot flames alike. You slip in, fully letting morning chill chase away last vestiges of nighttime slumber. My bathtub drain wishes it was this epic you think toes gripping the polished stone. Rising from the pool, you wrap a towel around your waist and notice a cluster of iron prayer bells from Section 10 hanging on a low palm branch. A soft breeze tugs at their cords, setting them to tinkle like distant temple chimes. You pause to listen, recalling Atishtar's protective bells. You ring one gently, letting its sound meld with birdsong, awakening across the dunes. Mobile ringtone desert edition, you joke inwardly, then smile at how meaningful simplicity can be. Finally, you stand at the camp's exit footprints, tracing a path from embers to sandals. You pat your satchel ash pouch, jasmine-scented paper camel hair mitt token, all guided by flame and memory. The sun climbs higher, its light strong and hopeful painting the caravan's wagons in crisp clarity. You take a deep breath, tasting spice, smoke, salt, and dawn, an olfactory echo of silk root nights. As you step onto the open sand beyond the caravan's embrace, you carry the day's first warmth in your bones and embers hush in your mind. A stray thought surfaces. My morning coffee will never taste this storied. You laugh softly, heart buoyed by flame's afterglow and ritual's legacy. With each step, the silent Brazier's ashes whisper solidarity, their stories woven into every grain of sand beneath your feet. You stand on a gentle rise, overlooking the caravan's break camp, dawn's rosy glow washing across ember-strewn sands where last night's braziers once burned bright. The circle of iron stands now lies silent ash beds, cooled to a pale shimmer beneath scattered pebbles, and footprints a testament to the communal warmth that bridged countless desert nights. In the 19th century, traders revered these firelit rituals as the heart of caravan culture, believing the ember's legacy lived on in every traveler's memory, long after the coals turned cold, mainstream fact. As you survey the scattered remains of triangles, spirals, and solitary braziers, you sense the ember's story, etched into the dunes, an enduring echo of smoke and solidarity. A fringed tradition insists that collectors of these morning ashes could bind them into ink for new travel journals, believing each swirl of ash-bound script carried the fire's protective spirit far beyond the desert's edge, quirky tidbit. You scoop a handful of fine ash into your palm, cool, soft, and surprisingly light, and let it sift through your fingers, imagining each grain preserving last night's conversations, bargains, and prayers. My publishing house would pay a fortune for this exclusive ink, you muse, noting how the idea of ash ink feels both poetic and a little eccentric. Historians still debate whether the ash ink practice was widespread among literate traders or a novelty among scholarly caravans, passing through oasis libraries, open scholarly debate. You slip a pinch of ash into a small satchel alongside your lapis blue souvenir pigment and the roast sesame seeds from the sweets table. Together, these tokens form a tactile narrative, the fire's warmth, artistry's glow, and communal bonds sealed in ash and ember. You walk among the cooled hearths, the tribal triangles of last night's protective flames, the spiral runes of guardian lore, the heptagon of fellowship. Each stand now a silent monument to ingenuity and shared ritual. Beneath your boots, the ash mixes with sand, creating a mosaic of memory that glints faintly like stardust. My scrapbook could never match this level of authenticity. You think marveling at how embers become archaeology beneath shifting dunes. Ahead, a young camel driver tends to a lone brazier still faintly smoldering, placing a single glowing charcoal into his satchel. He explains that he collects these embers to light the next camp's morning fire, a continuous chain of flame linking caravan posts from Samarkand to Kashgar. A fire-passed baton, you joke, inwardly conscious that each ember carries both warmth and the weight of connection across vast distances. Nearby, a caravan elder traces her fingertip in the ashes, reciting a final benediction. May the fire that warms us unite our path. Her voice breaks the silence. It's both command and caress, and you repeat the blessing softly, letting it resonate within your chest. The words feel ancient, yet immediate, a bridge between past and present. You pause at the largest brazier stand, its legs scorched to jet black against the pale morning sand. A faint wisp of smoke drifts from the central bowl as if the fire's spirit lingers in reluctance to depart. You cup your hands around the bowl and blow gently, coaxing the last breath of warmth into flight. A streak of golden spark soars skyward, vanishing into dawn's burgeoning light. Farewell, fire friend, you whisper, heart warmed by the fleeting spectacle. As you step away, you notice tiny quartz pebbles embedded in the brazier's rim, left over from an artisan's pebble insulation technique in Section 7. They glint softly, silent witnesses to nights of geometry and glow. One pebble rests at your feet. You scoop it up, tucking it into your pocket as a final keepsake of flame and form. The caravan's morning bustle begins. Reins clink, water buckets dance, and the honking hum of camels shifts from night's hush to day's purpose. Porters stir coals in cooking hearths, readying the day's stew. Artisans gather tools for forging goods. Traders check ledgers by the amber light of dawn. You watch, feeling the ember's legacy ignite new cycles of trade art and ritual, each fueled by fire's ancient promise. A stray thought surfaces. My commute could use a ritual trio of fires, you muse, picturing flame-lit waypoints bridging your urban path. Yet the desert's openness reminds you that flame transcends geography, carvings on dunes or skyscraper terraces. Every ember holds potential to unite and protect. You stride toward the laden camels, adjusting your satchel of ash pebbles and scented papers, the portable archives of 6 nights by flame. Each token whispers stories of geometric hearths, prayer-laden coals, creative workshops, sweet confections, protective circles, and culinary camaraderie. The ash's gentle gray hisses at dawn's breeze, promising renewal and remembrance. As you mount your camel and lead the column into the rising sun, you cast a final glance back at the empty brazier. Stands their silent framework, etched against the brightening sky. The dunes already shift, with the wind erasing footprints and scattering ash, a reminder that memory, like sand, is both enduring and ephemeral. You ride away feeling a subtle ember pulse beneath your skin, a quiet warmth that will linger through desert lanes and beyond. Each step forward carries the legacy of flame, an invitation to kindle connection, creativity, and comfort wherever you wander. And as the caravan's sunlit path stretches ahead, you know that though the embers cool, their glow remains alive in memory and story, guiding travelers through the endless dunes of time.